What if the planet beneath your feet suddenly stopped spinning? Not for hours or days, but for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is less than a coffee break, less than a song on the radio. It is almost nothing. Yet in those 5 minutes, the rules that hold our world together would be ripped apart. The sunrise you take for granted, the tides that kiss our shores, the weather systems that cradle life, all of it depends on motion. Take that motion away, and the Earth becomes a stranger, violent place. This is not science fiction. This is the blunt mathematics of inertia, gravity, and momentum, the invisible forces we live inside every moment. If Earth's rotation stopped for 5 minutes, what would happen to the ocean, the sky, the buildings, the people? In the next 10 minutes, we're going to simulate that moment and trace the chain reaction, from the very first second of chaos to the silent new world left behind. Before the drama, a single fact. At the equator, the Earth spins at about 1,000 miles per hour. Everything on the surface, air, water, buildings, trees, shares that eastward speed. When the ground beneath suddenly stops, those objects don't. They keep traveling. This is inertia. Objects in motion remain in motion unless a force stops them. Normally, friction, gravity, and the solidity of the surface stop you from flying away. But imagine those safeguards are removed in an instant. The raw momentum of a planet-sized motion meets the fragile human-made world. What follows is not one catastrophe, but many cascading catastrophes, each amplifying the next. In the first second after the spin ends, everything that isn't firmly anchored is yanked eastward. Cars, trees, rooftop water tanks, people thrown. The tops of tall buildings shear off as upper floors keep moving, while foundations try to stay put. Bridges and elevated roads tear free and become projectiles. Airplanes in flight are slammed by sudden changes in relative wind. Some are ripped from the sky. The atmosphere, still racing, becomes a blade. At the equator, winds will instantly become supersonic relative to the stalled ground, invisible, unstoppable, slicing everything in their path. Think of a global shockwave of air that behaves like a planet-wide hurricane, but far faster and far more destructive. As the planet's air keeps rotating, it slams into terrain, mountains, skyscrapers, forests. Pressure systems collapse. Jet streams break down into chaotic, violent vortices. The wind picks up dust, buildings, and even the surface soil, turning the sky into a moving, churning darkness. Visibility collapses. Engines fail. Communications are lost. In cities, the Air Force exceeds anything human engineering has ever been built to survive. It's not merely wind. It is the atmosphere attempting to keep its momentum while the world beneath it refuses to cooperate. By the second minute, the oceans answer. They've been circling the globe at rotational speed for billions of years. Suddenly the sea keeps moving, while the ground beneath does not. Trillions of tons of water surge eastward. Where coastlines once were, walls of water tens to hundreds of meters high barrel across continental shelves. Major coastal cities, Mumbai, Lagos, New York, Shanghai, Rio, are overrun in minutes. Tsunamis, yes, but not single waves, sweeping flows of ocean that reshape coastlines and carve new inlets. At the equator, water levels drop as centrifugal force vanishes and polar regions begin to gain mass. The global redistribution of water can happen rapidly, seas slamming into continents, then sloshing back as gravity seeks a new equilibrium. Islands disappear, river deltas are erased. Coral reefs, the ocean's living glass, are shredded. The Earth's spin also subtly influences stresses within the crust. When rotation stops, pressure redistributes. Tectonic plates, already under immense forces, experience sudden shifts. The result is a global spike in seismic activity. Earthquakes ripple through fault lines like a chorus. Volcanoes that were dormant begin to erupt because the mechanical balance that held magma in place has been altered. Eruptions on multiple continents bloom at once. Ash and sulfur inject into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and adding a choking layer to the already dust-filled air. The combination of earthquakes, volcanic blasts, and collapsing infrastructure produces fires, ruptured pipelines, and chemical releases. In short order, the surface of the planet resembles an industrial disaster writ across continents. As airborne dust and water vapor fill the sky, sunlight diminishes. Temperatures on the daylight side begin to rise as clouds and aerosols trap heat. The night side cools rapidly. But more importantly, the Coriolis forces that shape hurricanes, trade winds, and even the jet stream have gone. Weather systems, freed from their old steering patterns, break into chaotic new forms. Localized superstorms arise from the instability. Rain falls in torrents in some regions, while others bake. Short-term microclimates develop and collapse in hours. Navigation, which depended on stable winds and magnetic information from a functioning dynamo in the core, can no longer be trusted. By the end of 5 minutes, the violent motion is exhausted. Winds slowly decay, water sloshes and finds new low points. The air calms into an eerie, heavy silence. But that silence is not peace. The planet that stopped is not the planet we knew. Coastlines are moved inland or gouged out. Cities lie half buried in mud, salt or ash. Essential infrastructure, electricity grids, refineries, hospitals, is demolished or underwater. The magnetic field, which partly depends on the rotation of the liquid outer core, begins to change. It will not collapse instantly, but its weakening over time opens the surface to increased cosmic radiation and solar wind erosion. Human casualties would be staggering. Hundreds of millions, likely billions, would perish in the initial chaos, thrown from buildings, drowned, crushed by collapsing structures, incinerated in fires. Survivors would be isolated. No power, no fresh water, no medical supplies. Governments would be crippled. Supply chains would collapse. Even if small groups managed to survive in remote inland or deeply sheltered refugees, the world they emerge into would have lost much of what enabled modern life. Arable land, functioning ports, stable climates. If rotation stopped permanently, the consequences compound. Without rotation, atmospheric circulation would be dominated by a simple day-to-night flow. Heated air rising on the sunlit side and rushing across to the dark side to sink. This would create extreme temperature contrasts, a scorched day hemisphere and a frozen night hemisphere. Oceans would slowly migrate poleward as centrifugal force vanishes, flooding higher latitudes. Over years, the weakened magnetic shield would allow more charged particles to reach the atmosphere, stripping light gases and changing chemistry. Over centuries, Earth's climate could shift toward a harsh, Mars-like state in many regions, not uniformly dead but far less hospitable. Now imagine, even more horrifying, after 5 minutes of stillness, the planet resumes its spin. Everything that escaped earlier inertia is now slammed the other way. Winds reverse. The atmosphere collides with a ground that has already been reshaped by floods and fires. Its tsunamis already leaning in one direction rebound. The abrupt restart would cause another global wave of destruction, collapsing anything that survived the first event. The net result is a world that may still be geologically intact, but human civilization as we know it would likely be unrecognizable or extinct. It's easy to romanticize motion as chaos, storms, earthquakes, unpredictability. But on a planetary scale, motion is balance. Earth's rotation stabilizes weather, distributes heat, drives ocean currents, and even contributes to the magnetic dynamo deep below our feet. This rotation is a steadying metronome for life. The terrifying truth this thought experiment reveals is how dependent life is on a single property of our planet: steady rotation. 5 minutes of its absence does not simply inconvenience us, it reconfigures the physical relationships that make habitability possible. We live on a world that is constantly moving, but those motions are invisible to our daily lives. When you stand to watch a sunrise, you are riding the rim of a spinning world. That steady, unseen motion is not merely background, It is one of the fundamental conditions of life. The next time the horizon first lights up with color, remember that the sunrise is not the sun moving across the sky so much as you moving into the light. That steady spin has been a quiet guardian of life for 4 billion years. If it ever faltered for even 5 minutes, the cost would be more than dramatic footage. It would be the end of everything shaped by the slow, patient rhythms of a rotating planet. This is not a horror story about monsters. It is a reminder that our safest assumptions, day, night, tides, seasons, are sustained by the simplest things: motion, momentum, and balance. If Earth stopped spinning for 5 minutes, the world would not simply shut down. It would be remade. If Earth stopped spinning for 5 minutes, we would not merely lose our routines. We would lose the very conditions that make those routines possible. So what if Earth really did stop spinning for 5 minutes? It wouldn't be the end of a day. It would be the end of everything that makes days possible. Our oceans would rise, our skies would collapse, and the very air we breathe would turn against us. 5 minutes of stillness could erase billions of years of balance, and yet every moment right now, that same spin, that silent, unstoppable motion, keeps us alive. It's the reason you wake up to a sunrise, the reason tides move, winds blow, and time itself feels steady. Maybe that's the real lesson. We survive, not because the Earth is calm, but because it never stops moving. If you enjoyed this journey into the impossible, imagine what else could happen if the laws of our world suddenly changed. What if gravity reversed? What if the moon disappeared? Or time simply stopped? Tell us what you want to see next. And let's explore the edge of reality together, because this is What If. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next time we ask the question, what if?